So the second chapter in our biology part is tissues. We have seen that in the first lesson, the fundamental unit of life, cell, it makes up the living organisms. So cell is the structural and functional unit of life. There we studied the structure and functions, the components of the cell. Now let us see the tissues. So what are these tissues? What is the necessity of tissue? We discussed that the cell performs all the functions of a living organism. It carries out all the activities. So we are made up of cells. Multicellular organisms are made up of cells. Then what is the necessity of a tissue? Let us see. In case of unicellular organisms, there is no topic of tissues, because they are only one cell. Throughout their life, they have only one cell. Every aspect of the life, every life process is carried out within the cell. If you consider amoeba, everything goes in one cell. What I mean, everything. Nutrition, respiration, excretion, and even reproduction, everything it goes in the one cell. Amoeba, paramecium, chlamydomonas. So all these are unicellular organisms. So the cell itself makes up the total organism, and they can get the materials from the environment easily by simple physical phenomenon which we discussed in the previous class. Those are diffusion, and the other one is osmosis. So these kind of simple physical phenomenon help these organisms to obtain the materials from the environment to their bodies and send out the waste materials to the environment, even excretion also by the same physical phenomenon, diffusion and osmosis. So they does not require any other thing in addition to this, as they are made up of only one cell, unicellular. Now let us see the case of multicellular organisms. Multicellular organisms are made up of cells. Consider a multicellular organism, say a human. Let us consider a human being. Let us consider a human being, a multicellular organism. So the humans, they are made up of cells. They are made up of cells. But here you see the materials like food. People need food. So these cells, they cannot directly take the food. Whatever the cells present in the body, they cannot directly access the food. Food cannot enter our body directly through the cells, as like in amoeba. Food cannot enter our body cells through the process of diffusion, and water cannot enter our body cells through the process of diffusion, and oxygen cannot enter our body through the process of diffusion, as like in amoeba. In case of multicellular organisms, there are some specialized systems to carry out different functions, because multicellular organisms are very complex. So in multicellular organisms, all the cells do not take up a single function. The jobs or the tasks are divided among the groups of cells, which we call it as division of labor. Division of labor. So what is this division of labor? So what does this division of labor means? All cells do not take up all the functions. The cells are specialized to take up some special functions. Say for example, the cells present in the digestive system, they take up the function of digestion. So here is the digestive system. The cells present in the digestive system, they involve in the function of digestion. The cells that make up the respiratory system, they take up the function of respiration, collection of gases, excretion of gases. In this way, the cells that make up our bones, providing the cells that make up our muscles, enable us to make movements. In this way, there are different kinds of tasks in our body, like movement, that is walking or moving hands, or digestion, respiration, excretion, and more important, transportation, because transport is very important. In case of an amoeba, transport is not so important because it is only one cell. The materials are available in the vicinity. Simply they can diffuse in and out. There is no special system required to transfer. Where they will transfer, the whole organism itself is single cell. But whereas in multicellular organisms, millions of cells are there. The distance is very high from one part to another part. So they are to be transported. If you take a big tree, in a tree, it will be growing up to some meters height. Materials are to be transported. So transport system is also required, and the transport function also to be achieved. The transport function is achieved by some kind of cells. The excretion function is achieved by some kind of cells. So likewise, different cells are performing different functions. So the cells that perform a specific function are grouped together, are clustered, and it is called as a tissue. Tissue is a group of cells. A group of cells. A group of cells. How these cells are? They have a structural and functional similarity. Structural and functional similarity. That means they have a structural similarity and perform a similar function. Those are called as a tissue. So tissue is a cluster of cells. Tissue is a group of cells. So what kind of group it is? What kind of cells they are? Tissue is a group of cells which are similar in their function and structure. So why this grouping is done? Why the cells are specialized? So the cells are specialized to achieve the maximum possibility of efficiency, the maximum possible efficiency. If the cells are individually performing the tasks, there is no efficiency. The efficiency is not achieved. The 100% efficiency is not achieved. So to do so, the cells are specialized to clusters called as tissues. So these tissues, they make up the organs. These tissues, they make up the organs, and organs make up the organ systems. So here, again, every organ system, say for example excretory system, it is made up of many organs, and each organ is made up of different tissues. So in this way, the tissues, they make up the organs, organs make up the organ system. So in this way, the tissue is a very important part, a group of cells. In this lesson, we are going to study about the different kinds of tissues which make up various organs and organ systems of our body. So we are studying the tissue, the classification of the tissue or the groups of the tissue according to their structure, how the cells are shaped, and according to the functions they perform. So now let us see that the tissues of plants and animals. We discussed that tissue is a group of cells which are similar in function and structure. So tissues are found in both plants as well as in animals. So the multicellular animals, they consist of different organ systems made up of organs. Organs are made up of tissues. So tissues are found both in plants as well as animals. But are they same? Do plants and animals have same kind of tissues? No. There are different kind of tissues. Now let us see the differences between plants and animals on certain points. Now we are going to discuss the differences between plant tissues and animal tissues, basically the plants and animals, and what are the various criteria. So on basing these criteria, the plants and animals have different tissues. So these points explain why the plants and animals have different tissues, why they are not having same kind of tissue. What are these points? The first thing is movement. Movement. If you see that there, in case of movement, plants are fixed. Majority of the plants are fixed. Of course, certain plants, they float on water, but plants are sedentary. They fix in the soil. Plant cannot move from one place to another place. And plants do not possess any kind of voluntary movement, like it cannot show movements like your muscular movements. Plants, they have some movements called as tropic movements, that which they show movement towards some kind of trophism, some kind of stimulus, either water or earth or sunlight. So these kind of movements are shown by the plant parts. Plant stem bends towards the light, plant roots move towards the water or ground. So these kind of movements are seen in plants. So very little movements are seen. And even though the movements are there in plants, very slow movement. Slow movement. Slow movements. So what kind of tissues are found in the plants? Plants do not require the tissues as like in animals for quick movement. The main thing the plants need is strength. So most of the plant tissues, they provide support and strength to them. That means they have to stand stable against the wind, against the rain, because they don't have any shelter like animals. They cannot go for a shelter when there is a very heavy storm. So they should withstand on their own. So their bodies must have strength. So their tissues are in such a way that provide a lot of mechanical strength to the plant. In case of animal tissues, what do you find? What kind of tissues are required? So they are the tissues that should help the animals in movement, quick movement. So quick movement, such kind of tissues are required there. In case of animals, animals also, they need strength. They need support. So there are some tissues which provide shape, strength and support to the animals. At the same time, there are tissues that help the organisms to move. And the animals, they show various kinds of movements, variety of movements. So for that, they need different kind of tissues. So if you compare that there, the number of tissues a animal required is more than the plant tissues. Because you know the functionalities of animals are more, the activities of animals are more, the abilities of animals are more. So obviously they require more number of tissues. So they have more number of tissues compared to the plant tissues. And second difference is growth pattern. Growth pattern. Plants and animals differ in their growth patterns. How they differ in their growth patterns? So plants, they have growth in specific tissues, specific parts. Growth is found only in the specific parts of a plant. The whole plant is not uniformly grown up. So the growth is focused to certain parts of the plant. Whereas in case of animals, the growth is uniform. The growth is uniform. The growth is uniform throughout the body. All the parts are uniformly growing up, and the growth is limited at certain point. So that kind of differences we find between this plant and animals. So which affect their tissues. The next one is organ complexity, is the other factor, other criteria which decides the tissues of plants and animals. Organ complexity. If you compare the organ complexity, the plants, they have less organ complexity. The animals, they have more complexity of organs. More complexity of organs. So the organ complexity is less in plants, because you see in case of an animal, if you dissect an animal, a rat or any other animal, you see different kind of parts. If you notice, if you label the internal body parts of an vertebrate, you find different kind of organs. Heart you find, lungs you find, stomach you find, intestines, kidneys, spinal cord. So many organs are found. But whereas if you dissect a plant, if you cut a plant, what do you see in that? You will not find much difference. Means you will not find so many organ systems. So the complexity is less in plants compared to animals. In animals, the organ complexity is very high. So that is one of the factor on basing which the animals they have more number of tissues compared to the plant tissues. Even the tissues are entirely different in their structure and function. The other thing is cell growth of cells. So the growth of cells is also varied. Here the growth of cells in plants is all, as I told, it is localized to certain parts. Growing cells are called as meristematic cells. Meristematic cells, and other cells are called as permanent tissue. So on the basis of the division of cells, they are categorized into meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. But the growth pattern in animals is different. So these are the reasons why plants and animals they have different kinds of tissues. So what are the reasons? Here plants they need strength, so they need some tissues which provide them high strength. They do not require the tissues which provide flexible movements, because movement is not a characteristic of the plant. Of course, even though they possess little movements, in case of animals they require the tissues which help the animals in quick movements, large number of movements, that is the movements inside the body, movement within the body, movement from one place to another place, that is the locomotion. For all these movements they require the tissues. So growth pattern, organ complexity and cell growth, all these are the differences between a plant and an animal, which decides the kind and number of tissues they have. Now let us begin with the plant tissues. First discuss about the plant tissues and what are the different kind of plant tissues and what are their structure and function and how they are organized in the body of a plant. So let us talk about the plant tissues at first. Let us see the basic division or categorization or classification of plant tissues. So already I told you the point that plant tissues are divided primarily based upon the growth pattern. So plants do not grow evenly. There are specific regions of growth in plant. So the cells or the tissues that are actively growing are called meristematic tissues. Meristematic tissue. And the tissue which is not growing is called permanent tissue. Permanent tissue. So this permanent tissue is again divided into simple permanent tissue and complex permanent tissue. So these are the basic classification of plant tissues. So again, this meristematic tissue is divided into three, that is apical meristem, apical meristematic tissue, lateral meristematic tissue and intercalary meristematic tissue. So this is the way how the classification of the plant tissues is done primarily. Now let us talk about the meristematic tissue, then we will go to the permanent tissue. In that we will learn about simple permanent tissue and complex permanent tissue. So the first one we are going to study about the plant tissues is the meristematic tissues. Meristematic tissue. So what are these meristematic tissues and where are they found? We can see the prominence of the meristematic tissues with the help of a simple activity. So already we discussed at the point that meristematic tissues are the actively growing tissues of a plant. So the meristematic tissues are of three different types. They are apical meristem, apical, lateral and intercalary. So let us see what are these apical, lateral, intercalary and their location where they are found in a plant. Before that, let us see that activity what I told, to observe the activity, the active growth, the prominence of the meristematic tissue. So we have taken an onion bulb and we kept the onion bulb in a bottle with water. See that the roots part of the onion touching the water. And we kept the bulb in this inverted position. So you see what happens. If you observe it for a few days, the roots will be actively growing. The roots will be actively growing down. You can see, you can measure it day by day. You can make a table. One day, first day, second day, third day. You can see the improvement in the length. So quickly growing. That means if you keep the onion bulb here, one particular part of the onion is actively growing. Those are the roots are growing up. Even in the root, if this is the root growing up, if you consider this is the root growing up, even in this root, which part is actively growing up? So you observe it for some 3 to 4 days. You found that the roots are very long, grown up like this. Now what you did is, you cut 1 centimeter of the tips of the roots. So 1 centimeter. From the ending to 1 centimeter, you cut the tips of the roots. Again, you place this onion in the beaker, but the difference from here to here is, here you cut the roots which were grown earlier. Once the tips of the roots are removed, the growth is decreased. You will find that the growth is decreased. What does it shows? The tips are actively growing. The tips contain some substances. The tips they contain some active tissue which actively grows. So the meristematic tissue is an actively growing tissue which consists of actively dividing cells. It is found in different parts of the plant, especially the apical meristem. It is found in the tips of shoot and root. So it is found in the tip of root and shoot, and it helps in increasing the length of the plant. Roots lengthwise growing, shoot lengthwise growing up, and this growth is achieved by the apical meristem. It is responsible. And where is it found? Location, tips of shoot and root. What is its function? Its function is to increase the growth, and it is also responsible for the growth. So the meristematic tissues are formed. The meristematic tissue, it forms the new cells. And after some time, the new cells, they are differentiated. They undergo certain changes and they become into some other tissues, permanent tissues. So the meristematic tissues, whatever are produced, so they divide and divide. After some time, they stop dividing and they change into some other tissue. In this way, they will modify. But initially, they are formed as a meristematic tissue. So the apical meristem is found in the tips of the shoots and roots. Lateral meristem, it helps in increasing the girth of the plant, that is the width of the plant. Plant not only grows lengthwise. If it does so, it will be very pale and lean and thin. So when the tree is like a plant, it is thin. But as it is growing up, not only its height, its width also increases. Its trunk, its stem becomes fat and becomes like a trunk. So the width increases. It happens because of the lateral meristem, which is found in the cambium part. So what is this cambium part? If you see the cross section of a stem, this is the stem, you will find certain structures called vascular bundles. So at this point, it forms a ring called cambium. So in the cambium, this lateral meristem is found. If you see the wooden log, a very big wooden log, if the log is cut, a big wooden log is cut. So this is the wooden log. Inside the wooden log, you can see certain ring-like structures. You will find some ring-like structures. So what are those rings called as? Those are the cambium rings. Those are the cambium rings. So annually the rings are formed year by year. So that is the cambium. So actually when the cambium, if this is wood, means those are all dead cells. So when it was active at that time, here at this region of this cambium ring, you find certain cells called as the lateral meristematic tissue, which will help in increasing the width of the plant. So that is the lateral meristem. It is found in the cambium ring, cambium region. It is found in the cambium region. And intercalary meristem. So what is this intercalary meristem? Intercalary meristem is found in between the internodal space. So nodes, you know, on the stem there are certain places or points where a leaf or a branch arises, is called as a node. This is a node, this is a node. And this is the stalk of a leaf. From here the leaf comes. So at this point and at this point, between the nodes, at this point, the intercalary meristem is found. So the intercalary meristem also helps in increasing the height of the plant by increasing the tissue between two nodes. So the space between one node to another node is increased by this intercalary meristem. And at the base of the leaf also we find this intercalary meristem. So the primary idea of the meristematic tissue is that actively growing cells, they form a tissue called actively growing tissue, that is the meristematic tissue. So this is found in the actively growing parts of a plant. The first thing we discussed is apical meristem, which is found in the tip of a root and tip of the shoot. You see in the gardens also, the gardeners, they will be trimming the tips of the shoot. So by that the new branches arise. So they know that the tips are actively growing. If they cut the tip of the plant, some other branch will come. So this will make the plant to come in a bushy shape, not like a tall one. So in this way, these are the examples which let us know that the actively growing tissues are found in the tips of shoots. That is the apical. And lateral means the actively growing tissue is also found between the vascular bundles, which increase the girth of the plant, that is the lateral meristem. And between one node to another node we find some other meristematic tissue called as intercalary meristematic tissue. Now let us see the permanent tissues. The permanent tissues, again there are two types, simple permanent tissue and complex permanent tissue. Let us see what are they. So the next one, permanent tissues. So what are these permanent tissues and why they are called as permanent tissues? The previous one we discussed is that meristematic tissues. So the meristematic tissue, what is its speciality? They have the ability to divide. They are actively growing or actively dividing cells. So these meristematic tissue, it produces some cells. So how are these meristematic cells of meristematic tissue? They have thin cell walls made up of cellulose, thin cell walls. Thin cell walls. Thin cell walls means they have flexible shape. They do not have got any fixed shape. They do not have got any fixed function. And their cytoplasm is dense. Dense cytoplasm. Dense cytoplasm. Very little vacuoles. These are the characteristic features of this meristematic tissue. But some changes happen to these meristematic tissue, these features. What changes? The thin cell walls become thick and they will have a specific shape. They get a specific shape. The cells attain a specific shape and specific function, and they lose the ability to divide further. Then they are called as permanent tissues. Once the cells formed in the meristematic tissue, they undergo these changes, like they will get a fixed shape, their cell walls get thickened and they will attain a specific shape, then they are called as a permanent tissue. So the meristematic tissues, once they lose the ability to divide, they become the permanent tissue. So now again in this permanent tissue there are two different kinds as we discussed earlier. One is simple permanent tissue, the other one is complex permanent tissue. Simple permanent tissue means the tissue is made up of same kind of cells, only one kind of cells. Complex permanent tissue means made up of different kinds of cells. So 2 to 3 different variety of cells, they make up the tissue called as complex permanent tissue, and the tissue which is made by similar cells is called as simple permanent tissue. So let us learn from this simple permanent tissue. Simple permanent tissues, in that the first one which we are going to discuss is parenchyma. Parenchyma are simply called as the packing cells or packing tissue of plants. Packing tissue. So what is this packing tissue? Various parts inside the plant are packed by this parenchymatic tissue. They are the simple cells, simple permanent tissue which packs up. So these cells are loosely packed with some air spaces. They are found in the different parts, like they are found in stem, they are found in root, they are found in the leaf. So these parenchymatic tissues, they help the plant in different ways. Certain parenchymatic tissues, the cells, they have large spaces or gaps between them, so in which the air is trapped. This helps in diffusion of gases. Sometimes in certain plants like aquatic plants, these air spaces, they fill up with air and they help the plant to float on water. So which we call the phenomenon as buoyancy. Buoyancy. So these air spaces, what are the air spaces that are found in the package of this parenchymatic tissue? They help the aquatic plants to float on water. So they help in that buoyancy, the ability of the plant to float on the water. So this is achieved by this parenchymatic tissue with air spaces, and we call this parenchyma as aerenchyma. Aerenchyma. Certain parenchymatic cells, they consist of chloroplast. You know, the chloroplast, they contain chlorophyll and they take part in the production of food by the process of photosynthesis. So certain parenchymatic cells, they will have plastids. Which plastids? Chloroplast. So these chloroplast carry out photosynthesis. The parenchymatic tissue that consists of chloroplast is called as chlorenchyma. Chlorenchyma. Chlorenchyma, aerenchyma. So based upon the function, they are named as like this aerenchyma or chlorenchyma. And what is the basic structure of this parenchymatic tissue? They have thin cell walls, unspecialized cells. Basically, they are the packaged tissue, and moreover, they store the food, and nutrients, water. So they are found in the roots and stem. They store the nutrients. They take in that function of storing the food and nutrients, and they perform certain functions like providing buoyancy to the aquatic plants, and they consist of chloroplast and they take part in the process of photosynthesis. And when the parenchyma consists of chloroplasts, it is called as chlorenchyma. So this is about the parenchyma, the package tissue of a plant. So the second simple permanent tissue is collenchyma. So this is the tissue which is found in the plant parts which bend easily. So the plants, they need to bend without breaking because they have to counteract the forces like wind. When there is a heavy wind, you see the branches are moving this. You may feel that the branches and leaves, the stalks of the leaves are breaking, but they do not break. So a plant needs some tissue which is flexible. Plant needs certain cells which are flexible, so which can resist the strain, the bending, and retain their original shape again. So that kind of flexibility is provided by the tissue called as collenchyma. The basic difference between a parenchyma and collenchyma is parenchymatic cells are loosely packed. You see certain gaps, intracellular spaces are there in parenchyma. Whereas in case of collenchyma, the intracellular spaces are very less. If you see, the cell walls of this collenchyma are irregularly thickened. That means at some places they are very thick, some places where they are very thin. And moreover, you find that at the corners, they are highly thickened. They are highly thickened at the corners. And the intracellular spaces are very less. Very less intercellular spaces. in case of collenchyma. So this tissue provides the plants, what does it provide? Flexibility. That is the major function achieved by this collenchyma. Flexibility. How are the cell walls? Irregularly thickened. Intracellular spaces are less. And where do we find this collenchyma? We find this collenchyma in the stems. We find this collenchyma in the hard parts, like in the base of the leaf, the stalk of the leaf. So if this is the leaf, upper epidermis, so you can find the stalk running in the leaf in the form of veins. So the hard part of this stalk and the veins is made up of collenchyma. So this gives the mechanical flexibility to the plant. So the next tissue is that sclerenchyma. Sclerenchyma is the tissue which makes the plants hard and stiff. So we find the plants, when they are grown up into trees, you find the branches and different parts of the plant are very hard and woody and stiff. That is because of the sclerenchyma. And different parts of a plant, even not the tree, even a plant has got certain parts which are very hard, very stiff. So that is because of the tissue called as sclerenchyma. So sclerenchyma, they have the cells which are very hard, which are very tightly packed without any intracellular spaces, and most of these cells are dead. Example, where do you find the sclerenchyma? In the husk of coconut, shell of coconut, you see that it is very hard. And the shell of seeds, shell or cover of seeds, certain seeds, they are very hard. That is due to a substance present in these sclerenchymatic tissue, that is lignin. Lignin is the hard material found in these parts. So these cells are packed up with this lignin, which makes very hard and impervious. You can say that this is impervious. So that means it does not allow any other things into that very hard surface. So it protects the seeds. The seed coat or the seed cover protects. So even the husk of the coconut, shell or cover of the seeds, they contain this sclerenchyma. Sclerenchyma is also found in the parts like around the vascular bundles, So the main aim is to provide the mechanical strength, stiffness to the plant, and it is found in the veins of leaves, that is the veins of the leaves around the vascular bundles is the location where the sclerenchyma is found. So now let us look at the epidermal tissue, that is epidermis or epidermal cells, how they help the plant. So the epidermal cells or the epidermis is the protection or the outermost layer covering of the various parts of plant. So you see the leaves, stems and roots, these are all covered by a layer of cells which gives protection. What kind of protection they give? They give protection from the environmental factors as well as from the other biological harmful either fungi or any other organisms. So the epidermis, it prevents the entry of the foreign particles, either fungus or other organisms, or it avoids the effect of light or water on the body parts of the plant. So first thing they provide is that protection from the, especially from the heat or water or whatever, so from the external environmental factors, the epidermal cells give protection. So they are the flat cells arranged in flat layers. In certain places they are only single layered epidermal cells. The outer walls are much thicker than the inner walls. Outer walls are thick compared to the inner walls. So these are the epidermal layers. In certain cases, these epidermal cells are covered by a waxy coat, that is to resist the effect of water. Certain plants, they live in water, aquatic plants. Certain plants, they live in heavy rainfall areas. So because of these reasons, because of the heavy water, the inner cells, the parenchymatic tissue and other tissues may get damaged. Those are all protected by this epidermal cells layer, and which is coated by a waxy coating. So the epidermis, apart from giving protection, it also takes part in the exchange of gases. How? If you see the epidermis of a leaf, especially on the lower surface of the leaf, if you observe a leaf, thin peel of a leaf, you will find that the cells, epidermal cells, and inside that, in your slide of leaf cells, you will find some kidney shaped cells here and there. So what are these kidney shaped cells? Say for example, you have mounted a thin peel of a leaf, a Rio leaf, onto a slide and you observed it under a microscope. So in your observation, you will find some kidney shaped cells like this. These are the gourd cells which operate the opening and closing of a pore called as stomata. Stomata is the opening which allow the gases to enter into the leaf and exit the leaf, oxygen and carbon dioxide. So they are needed by the plant for the process of photosynthesis, and they are produced as a part of respiration, and these gases are to be exchanged with the environment, and that is facilitated by these epidermal cells. So the epidermal cells, they have got perforations, that means pores at certain places, and the pores are not inactive, they are dynamic, they are opening and closing. The pores are operated by a pair of gourd cells. So these gourd cells are also a part of this epidermal cells. So they play a part in the exchange of gases even. So what is the other specialization of these epidermal cells? One is protection, thickening, having a waxy coat and giving protection. Second thing is exchange of gases, having certain cells called stomata and allowing the gases to out and in. And third thing is hairs. The epidermal cells that are found in the roots or root hairs, the cell will have a hair-like thing. So this is the epidermal cell. So this epidermal cell, it is having a hair which will help in absorption of water and mineral salts. It will increase the surface area because of this hair-like structure. So this is the one of the specialization of these epidermal cells found in plants. So other thing is waxy coat. Already we discussed that certain parts of plants, they have waxy coating, that is to prevent the effect of water when they are exposed to water. So the other thing is bark. Whatever the epidermal cells are there, these epidermal cells, they just below these epidermal cells, there will be a strip of meristematic tissues. So the strip of meristematic tissues are always growing up new cells and pushing these cells forward, and these cells, the epidermal cells, the old epidermal cells, they become dead and they get tightly packed, and these dead cells, they form the top layers on the trunk of a tree. We call it as a bark. So you might have observed a bark. So the bark is easily separated from the trunk. You can peel it off with your hand. So in this way, the old dead cells are packed up in layers to form the bark. So this is all about the epidermal cells. Let us see animal tissues. So plants and animals, we know the basic differences. The plants, they have very less complexity when compared to animals. Animals are very complex in their organ system, and animals perform a lot of things which cannot be performed by plants. The way the animals obtain their food, the way they get the energy, the way they grow, the way they reproduce, it's all entirely different and very complex when compared to plants. So to achieve all these tasks, animals, they have got very well developed organ systems. So all these organ systems are made up of organs, and all these organs are made up of tissues. So the number of tissues compared to plants, in animals we find a variety of tissues which perform variety of functions. Say for example, we consider an animal like a man. So he does so many things. He needs energy. That means he needs food. To get his food, he moves from one place to another place. So movement is required. Movement is required. And he gets the food. He has to eat the food and he should digest the food. Eating and digestion. Eating is one activity, digestion, movement. So the digestion is done at one particular place, one particular part, one particular region of the body. But the digested food should be supplied to all parts of the body. So transportation is required. And inside the cells, activities takes place, the energy, the food is utilized and energy is produced and waste is produced. The waste has to be excreted out. And for the production of energy, oxygen is required. So how the oxygen is obtained? By breathing. Again, for breathing, you have to move your lungs and ribs. You have to give some movements in your cavity, in your diaphragm. So you need some special tissues to achieve all this. Animals need special tissues to achieve this movement. So to make movements, to give movements within the body or in body parts or from moving from one place to another place, that is to get your food, locomotion, moving from one place to another place. So whatsoever the movement within the body or the movement of organism from one place to another place, whatsoever, for that movement, special tissues are needed here. You need muscle. And you need eating and digestion. You need a separate system, organ system, digestive system, which is made up of stomach, intestines, liver, pancreas. All these are made up of different tissues which perform different function. So here you need different tissues. And even these digestive organs are made up of, there should be some kind of movements in the digestion to digest the food. So to produce that movements, your digestive system also must have tissue called as muscle tissue. And to make a movement, to give a movement, you not only need muscle, you need some other supporting structure framework called bone. And for the transportation, you need some medium to transport the materials and you need to have blood. So see that you are taking oxygen in your lungs, and to supply or to transport this oxygen also you need a medium called blood. So just here we identified certain tissues, the need and necessity of the variety of tissues in our body. This is a few examples, a few of them we have written here, not the all. This way there are so many kind of activities are required for the animals to carry out their life, for their survival, not like plants. So to do all so, they need lot of a variety, a wide range of tissues. Say example, we have seen that muscle is required to create movements. Until there is no movement, there is no activity in the living organisms. For respiration, movements are required. For digestion, movements are required. To get the food, the animal has to move. To protect itself, the animal has to move. To make the movements, the organism requires tissue like muscle and tissue like bone, and for transportation of materials, and the tissue like blood is required. So these are the examples. So let us see the different kinds of tissues that are present in the animals. Let us begin with the first and foremost important tissue, epithelial tissue, the simplest one. We are beginning with the simplest one, epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue, the first animal tissue which we are discussing here is the epithelial tissue. This is similar to the epidermal cells in plants. There we studied the plants, they have an outer covering called as epidermal cells, which protect the inner tissues of the plant from the external environment and from the external foreign bodies, that is fungi, bacteria, virus and other kind of things. In the same way, even animals, they have got a special covering on their bodies and inside the body and to the inner organs also. Every organ is specially covered, and even the total body of an organism is also covered. So we have some kind of lining outside our body and even inside our body. The inner organs are also lined by this epithelial cells. So this forms the epithelial tissue. The main aim or function of this tissue is giving protection, that is outside and even inside of our body. See, for example, you see, just if you open your lip and you see, you find some kind of transparent layer inside your lips. Sometimes when you drink any hot tea, coffee or milk, when it is too hot, then you will find you will lose some the layers, the top layers inside your cheek. You find them like a thin paper or thin polythene, that is nothing but a layer of epidermal cells. The thin layer, the paper like polythene like material you find is the epithelial tissue. So this epithelial tissue, mostly it is found in single layered in certain places, and some places it is multiple layered, that is number of layers. But anyway, these are the very thin tissues, flat cells which are lined, which are very closely packed without any intracellular spaces. They are very closely packed. So the cells are so flat and simple. At some places they are single layered and they are very closely arranged. There are no intracellular spaces. See, because of that absence of the intracellular spaces, they act as a barrier. That means they do not allow any materials to go. They have the selective permeability because these are the single layer of cells. The cells are covered by a cell membrane. So we studied the properties of cell membranes. Cell membranes do not allow all the materials to pass through them. They have the permeability, selective permeability. So selectively they are permeable. And other thing, they may be one layered or many layered. And they act as a barrier. And they are separated from the underlying tissue by a fibrous basement membrane. So whatever the covering, that is in that any of the part, the top layer which is protecting is called as epithelial tissue. The epithelial tissue is separated from the bottom tissue by a basement fibrous membrane. So it is separated. That is the structural features of this epithelial tissue we find. Now let us see what are the different types of epithelial tissue we find. So according to the location, basing on the location, basing on their functioning, this epithelial tissue is classified to squamous epithelial tissue, cuboidal epithelial tissue, columnar epithelial tissue. And squamous epithelial tissue, sometimes it forms stratified squamous epithelial tissue, stratified. So let us see what is this squamous, cuboidal, columnar. Here they are telling the shape. Squamous, they are flat, cuboidal in the shape of cubes, columnar in the shape of columns, stratified means number of layers. So let us see their structure and let us know where they are found in our body and what kind of special functions they are performing. So in this epithelial tissue, the first one which we are going to discuss is squamous epithelial tissue. Squamous, they are the flat cells. Mostly they are single layered flat cells without any intracellular gaps. They are closely packed and attached to one another this way. And the main function of this squamous epithelium is protection. They form the lining of many of our body parts. You see the lining of blood vessels. So do not get confused that blood vessels are made up of squamous epithelial cells. So the blood vessels are lined by this squamous epithelium. Lung alveoli are lined by this squamous epithelium. So it shows that in these two places you see that lung alveoli. You might be knowing the lung alveoli structure. This is the alveoli. So this alveoli, it gets the oxygen here when we inhale, and it is having the lung alveoli. They are having a single layer of cells in which the diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place. So here the cells are very thin, single layered. So by that, the blood vessels, whatever the blood vessels, they are in contact with this alveoli. So through these blood vessels also the exchange of gases takes place. So there, the tiny capillaries and the alveoli are very thin, made up of single layer of cells. So that is the lining of this made up of squamous epithelium. And you see the lining of esophagus. So the esophagus has to be protected, prevented from the friction of various kind of materials we swallow in. So that is lined by the esophagus, because we eat different kinds of food with different pH levels. So all this food material should not damage the esophagus, and the esophagus is made smooth and easily allowing the substances, the food which we have swallowed, to pass through. So that esophagus is lined by this squamous epithelium. The inner lining of our mouth is nothing but the squamous epithelium, and the skin, that what we have covering our body, is also squamous epithelium, but the skin is having many layers, not single layered. In these cases, single layer is required because it facilitates the diffusion of materials in case of alveoli and all. But whereas in case of skin, if only one single layer is covering our inner parts, the single layer may get easily damaged by mechanical any kind of injuries. So we need much more protection. The skin should be thick. So the skin is having so many layers of squamous epithelium, it is called as stratified squamous epithelial tissue. Stratified layers, because our skin must have so many layers. Our skin is having, if the outer skin is having only 1 or 2 layers, they get easily damaged. So by that, inner tissues will be, inner muscles will be exposed out. So for a better protection, that is to withstand the tear and wear, the skin is having so many layers of squamous epithelium, which is called as stratified epithelium. So that is the location. It is found in the lining of blood vessels, thin blood vessels, lung, alveoli, esophagus, mouth, lining of mouth, lining of esophagus, and the skin. Now let us see the next one, cuboid epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue, the next epithelial tissue which we are going to discuss is columnar epithelial tissue. Columnar, what is the meaning of a column? Is a pillar. So the epithelial tissue that have a structural appearance like pillars, which are arranged side by side, you call it as columnar epithelial tissue or columnar epithelium. The main function of this columnar epithelium is absorption and secretion. The different organs that involve in the absorption and secretory functions, there you find this tissue. Basically in the intestine, you see that intestinal juices are secreted. The intestinal juices are secreted for the complete digestion, and the digested food is absorbed into the intestine, into the bloodstream. So you find the function of absorption and secretion in the intestines. There you find this columnar epithelium, and you also find it in the respiratory tract. The respiratory tract, it consists of mucus, and the mucus, it has to be moved. Movement is required. So the columnar epithelial tissue which is found in the respiratory tract, it is having cilia, hair-like structures. The cilia helps in the forward movement of mucus. Forward movement of mucus. So as they are having cilia, as it is a columnar epithelial tissue, you are calling it as ciliary columnar epithelial tissue. So that is the name given here, as they are possessing the cilia in addition to the columnar shape. So the function is absorption and secretion. So the structure is like columns. So columns, in the sense they look like a pillar kind of appearance. Now the next one is cuboidal. Cuboidal epithelial tissue. Cuboidal. The cells are in the shape of cubes. We call them as cuboidal epithelial tissue. So the location where they are found is that kidney tubules and salivary glands. Basically they involve in the function of secretion. So at the surface as an epithelial cell, they involve in the function of secretion. They are found in the kidney tubules and salivary glands. And they also provide mechanical support. This is another function achieved. So these cuboidal epithelial tissues, they are specialized at a specific situation. So as they are secretory in nature, sometimes they get folded inwards. Say for example, if these are the cuboidal cells, So sometimes they get folded inwards like this. They get folded inside and they form a multicellular gland. Multicellular gland. A complete gland is formed by the cuboidal epithelial tissues. A gland is formed which is secretory in function. So sometimes they are specialized. They take this change, that is they get folded inwards and they form a multicellular gland event. So that is about the cuboidal epithelial tissue. So we discussed about the epithelial tissue is of different types according to the shape and function it performs. Squamous epithelial tissue and columnar epithelial tissue, cuboidal epithelial tissue. So next we go to that connective tissue. So the connective tissue, it helps the organisms in providing strength. It helps the animals in providing strength. And it also helps in transport of different materials from one location to another location within the body of an animal. Let us see the features, the structural and functional features of connective tissue. Now let us talk about the connective tissue. Here the connective tissue, the name itself suggests that the connective tissue helps in connecting different parts. So different parts, the movements in animal body, the animal bodies are flexible. So the flexibility is because of that. The ability of the organism to move its body parts. So the movement is possible because of different parts connected by different materials. And moreover, the connective tissue, it connects the different substances in terms of supplying the materials, in terms of communication, transportation. So that is, the first one is blood. Blood is a connective tissue. Moreover, it is a fluid. So we call the blood as fluid connective tissue. Blood as fluid connective tissue. What does the blood consist of? It consists of a matrix that is called as plasma, the liquid part of the blood, which contain water, nutrients, minerals and organic compounds like sugar, amino acid, urea and carbon dioxide dissolved. So all these things are found in the plasma. Plasma. In addition to this, cells. What kind of cells are found? RBC, WBC, platelets. So these are the components of this blood, cells of this blood. That means here blood is a tissue which is not made up of same kind of cells. Different kind of cells, RBC, WBC, platelets, they are different in their structure as well as their function. Of course, all these cells, their common aim, the common function is same, transport. But individually they perform different tasks. Altogether they constitute the tissue called as connective tissue, that is the fluid connective tissue. Here what do we notice is that the intracellular space is very large. Say for example, if you take a drop of blood, in the drop of blood you will find so many cells, RBC, WBC and all, they are not closely packed, they are individual, freely floating cells. So this is the tissue which consists of cells which are freely floating, which do not have a fixed position to stay. So the intracellular spaces are very large, lot of gap between cells in the connective tissue blood. The main function of the blood is to transport the materials, supply the food to different parts, collect the waste and take it to the excretory system for the filtration. So supply the oxygen to different parts, supply the carbon dioxide to the lungs. In this way, it performs the transportation function. Of course, the blood it plays in the other parts like immunity and other things. So the primary thing is that, the primary function. So let us look at the second connective tissue. The first one is blood and the second one is bone. So bone is a hard tissue which gives mechanical strength. It gives a shape to our framework, body framework, that is the skeleton. So we have set of bones, a frame of bones present inside our muscles. So muscles are wrapped around the bones. So the bones, they give a specific shape. The shape you have is because of the bones, because of your skeleton. So they provide mechanical strength and support. Let us see how they are made of. The bones are made up of hard matrix. The matrix of the bone is very hard and compact, tightly packed. And it is packed with minerals called calcium and phosphorus. Salts of calcium and phosphorus. Calcium and phosphorus compounds, they make up the bone. You need to have calcium and phosphorus in your diets to keep your bones strong and healthy. So, bone is a connective tissue which gives mechanical strength, shape, structure to our body. And the other one, the next is ligaments and tendons. So what are these ligaments and tendons? Ligaments and tendons are the joining connective tissues. What do they join? So what is a ligament? Ligament is the material, it joins bone to another bone. So two bones are to be jointed, but there should be some kind of flexibility to bend it. Say for example, here we have bones in our wrist and we have bones in our lower arm. The lower arm bone is connected to the wrist of this arm. So here at this position, these bones are connected to this bone by some kind of material. So what is that material? Ligament. Even here the bones inside our hand, palm, are connected by ligament. Even your palm, your foot is connected to your lower leg bone by ligament. So ligament is a white tough material which join bone to bone. Then what is this tendon? Tendon is a material which join a muscle to bone. It will attach bone to a muscle. So bone and muscle are attached by tendons. Bone and bone are attached by ligament. So this is the connective tissue, ligament and tendons. And the next one is cartilage. What is this cartilage? Cartilage is nothing but a soft bone. You see that at the endings of the bones. So two bones come together for a joint. So at this joint, if two bones, both the bones, they are having a hard surface, because of the friction they may wear. So to avoid that, the bones at the ends, they are smoothened by some kind of rubbery material, soft flexible material called as cartilage, a soft bone. Even certain parts of your body, hard parts of your body are not made of bone, they are made of cartilage for a flexibility. You see your nose flap, the wall between your two nostrils is made up of cartilage. Here you can bend it. You see it is hard enough, but at the same time you can bend it. Even your ear flaps, the ear flaps, they have a bone which is very flexible, you can bend it. But even though you bend it, it doesn't break because it has the nature of flexibility and it is the cartilage. So even your larynx, in your throat you have the larynx. The larynx, it is made up of, the voice box is made up of cartilage. So it is found in the larynx, it is found in the ear flap. It is a soft bone. This is also a connective tissue. And one more connective tissue, that is areolar connective tissue. So what is this areolar connective tissue? So this is the tissue which is found in your body, which will connect the different parts of your body. That means in your cavities, say this is your thoracic cavity or the chest cavity, and here this is your abdominal cavity. The chest cavity has got different parts like lungs, heart and all, and even your stomach, the abdominal cavity has got the stomach, intestines and all this. So these parts, they are placed in their positions. So they are not moving here and there when you are moving. If you are bending, your body parts are not falling. Your heart is not falling, friend. Your lungs are not displaced from their position. They are kept in their positions. Even though you jump, even though you sit, even though you become upside down, their positions are stable. So they are stable because they are packed by some connective tissue called areolar connective tissue. So these are the important connective tissues that are found in animals. Now let us look at the muscular tissue. Muscular tissue. Here we see three different types of muscular tissue. One is striated, unstriated and cardiac. So what is the term striations? Striations are bands. If you observe the structure of these muscles, if you observe the structure of striated muscular tissue, you find striations. Striation means bands. If you see the muscle cells which are striated, you will find some bands. These muscle cells are called as striated muscles. Striated muscles. What are these striated muscles? Where are they found in our body? What is their function? All our skeletal muscles are striated muscles. Skeletal muscles. They are striated. What is skeletal muscle? The muscle which is connected to the skeleton, which helps in the voluntary movements. Voluntary movements in the sense the movements which are under our control. All the muscles that you find in your hands and legs, in your jaw. Say for example, you wanted to open your mouth, you can open. That means you will move your lower jaw. So by that here the muscles will expand and they contract. So by that you can operate your mouth, you can operate your hand because of the muscle contraction and relaxation. So the muscles are able to contract and relax because of the proteins, contractile proteins. Here these movements are voluntary, means they are under your control. If you wanted to lift your hand, you can lift. If you don't want, you can leave it down. So that is under your will, your control. So that is that voluntary movements which are under our will. Voluntary movements means the movements which are under our will are executed by this muscle, skeletal muscle. So this skeletal muscle is striated. The muscle is having striations, bands. If you observe the slide of a striated muscle under microscope, you will be able to see some bands. The next one is unstriated or smooth muscle. The smooth muscle is found in inner parts of our body like lungs and eyelids, iris which moves and adjusted, and your lungs, your digestive system, the digestion. So you know that in the process of digestion your stomach moves in churning the food. So you are not giving any instruction to your digestive system to shake or move. They are involuntary movements, means which are not under your will. Without your control, there will be different kind of movements going on in your body. That is to carry out different process. So there, it doesn't require your decision, your judgment whether to move or not. They are not under your will. So those are called as involuntary movements. So where do you find these involuntary movements? In the digestive system, respiratory system, So all these systems, you find the organs are made up of this smooth muscle. So the smooth muscles, they have the function of involuntary muscles. Now let us see the other one, cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle which makes up the heart, and the heart has got involuntary contraction and relaxation. Heartbeat, contraction and relaxation. The heart contracts, relaxes rhythmically, and this contraction and relaxation is involuntary. You are not controlling the heartbeat. Then why are we studying this cardiac separately? Why can't we include it under unstriated or smooth muscle? Because this is also, these muscles are also having the involuntary movements. They are present in the parts which have involuntary movements. Even the cardiac muscle is also present in the organ which has got involuntary movements. Why can't we study these two under one heading? Why are we separating as unstriated and cardiac? The reason is they have structural dissimilarity. Here if you see the structure of striated muscle, it has got bands. If you see the structure of smooth muscle, the smooth muscle will be having a long spindle shaped smooth cells. They don't have any bands. This kind of smooth cells. Nucleus at the center. That is the smooth muscle, no bands. Involuntary movements. If you see the heart looks like this. The heart muscle, the cardiac muscle looks like striated muscle. So it has got an appearance of striated muscle. It has got striations, but in functioning similar to smooth muscle. So functioning of cardiac muscle is similar to smooth. Structure of the cardiac muscle is similar to striated muscles. So that is the reason why we separated it as a cardiac muscle. So the muscular tissue is of three kinds. One is striated muscle, the other one is unstriated muscle, and the third one is cardiac muscle. So this is all about the muscular tissue. So we have seen the epithelial tissue and the connective tissue and the muscular tissue. The next tissue of animals which we are going to study is that nervous tissue. So the nervous tissue is made up of specialized cells called as nerves. Let us write it as nerve cells. The nerve cells, they make up the nerves. So these are the special cells. All the cells in our body, they have the property or the characteristic of response to stimulus. Response to stimuli. But whereas the nerve cells, they have very rapid response. And not only that, the nerve cells are specialized in carrying these responses to different parts of the body. The information is carried in our body from one part to another part in the form of an electrical impulse through the nerve cells. The nerve cells, they have a peculiar shape, that they have a body called a cell body or cyton, and with an extended long branch called as axon, and this one is called as cyton, and even the cyton has got certain branchings called as dendrites, and this axon, it is covered by a myelin sheath, and the axon ends at narrow terminals. So this is the shape. So this kind of nerve cell is connected to another nerve cell. It forms a long network of nerves. A bunch of nerve cells joined together by a connective tissue to form a nerve. So nerve cells are also called as neurons. The neurons, they join together with connective tissue and they form a nerve. The nerves are associated with muscles, and the nerves which are connected to the muscles, they produce the response to the muscle, and muscles are showing the movement, the contraction and relaxation. So this combination of the nerve and muscle is fundamental to any animal. Most of the animals, they have this combination, so by that they can show very quick responses, very quick movements. So in this way, the nervous tissue consists of nerve cells which help in communication, that is to pass the information in the body, within the body, between the different parts of the body. So this is all about the animal tissues. So in this lesson, tissues, we have learnt about the plant tissues and animal tissues. So in the previous chapter, we learnt about cells. So in connection to the cells, here we studied about the tissues. Just you can link up the concepts, and if you have a possibility, just you can watch the permanent slides of animal tissues, which are made permanent mounts of animal tissues like voluntary muscles, involuntary muscles. Those are the striated and unstriated, and you can find the similarities and differences between the cells in their shape, and you can identify their functioning with the topics which you have learned here.